Alberta, the wild rose country. Now, Alberta is often compared to the Texas of Canada. Now, like Texas, Alberta is a very rich province. And why is that? Well, it's because of oil. In fact, Alberta's oil reserve has made Canada the sixth largest oil producer in the world. And this industry has made Alberta the richest in the Canadian Confederation, and by a large margin. Now, take a look at this graph showing the GDP of each Canadian province in 2019. It's pretty obvious that Alberta is making a lot of the other provinces pretty jealous, especially Quebec. In fact, Alberta is making over 80,000 Canadian dollars, and that is twice as rich as most eastern provinces such as New Brunswick and Nova Scotia. The poor Atlantic coast. One day, guys, you will make it. And this wealth is obvious. If you take a short drive through the province, you will notice all the traditional items of Alberta, such as jacked up pickup trucks and beautiful modern cities, such as Medicine Hat. No, just kidding, not Medicine Hat. I'm just kidding, Medicine Hat. Although, you should really change your motto. I mean, welcome to the gas city? Really? Like, why would you even choose that? Anyways, let's find out where this oil is even located. So for those who don't know, this is a map of Alberta. Very boring shape, to be honest, but slight improvement from neighboring Saskatchewan. I mean, like, they didn't even try. Just a pure square. The oil business in the province is heavily centered in the northeastern part of the province, heavily centered around the famous city of Fort McMurray, which you might remember from the 2016 wildfires. Poor guy. Anyways, these are the areas where oil can be found in Alberta, and these are the current oil sand and conventional oil operations in the province. So as you can see, it takes a large area, about 760 square kilometers of heavy industrial use. Now, this might not seem like much. However, this causes immense irreplaceable damage to the surrounding environment. Oftentimes, pollutants can find their way into rivers, in this case it would be the Athabasca River, and also be absorbed by the surrounding land, causing major contamination for multiple generations to come. Wait, what do you mean by oil sands? Well, oil sands are essentially what they sound like. You see, in Alberta, most oil production is not conventional oil with standard wells. Oil is mined, especially since the 2000s when oil prices were high and oil sands became very profitable. The issue is that this oil is mixed with a lot of sand, and this sand needs to be extracted out of the oil. Now, this is a very complex process that requires a lot of engineering that I'm not even going to pretend to know. However, I do know that this process is actually a very expensive process, and it is only profitable when oil prices are above the $40 US-ish mark. This obviously can be problematic at times when considering that 25% of Alberta's economy depends on this sector. So when oil prices are low, Alberta has a bad time. So yeah, things are doing great with COVID-19. But in all reality, it worked out for them in the most part. In fact, Alberta has been receiving mad dough since the 1970s, which comes in form of royalties. Now, royalties are essentially that companies pay a percentage of the profits to the provincial government. Now, this is Alberta's oil revenue since the 1970s, both conventional oil and oil sands. So here we can see that Alberta has been having an average of around $2 billion per year, which is very good by all means. However, we can also see that Alberta had a big boom in 2010 with a revenue of $6 billion. Now, why is that? Well, in Alberta, there was a big boom in 2010, especially in the oil sector. But then 2014 came around and oil prices crashed, and this caused a major recession in Alberta that the province has never been able to recover from. Now, contrary to popular belief, Alberta is not the only oil producer in Canada, and far from it. Alberta, however, does dominate the sector with an 81.8% of the production, followed by Square Saskatchewan at 10.8%. Newfoundland managed a surprising 5.1% of the production due to offshore drilling in the Atlantic Ocean, and British Columbia has a 1.4%, and finally Manitoba with 0.9%. The rest is divided between multiple provinces, however, they're insignificant in terms of production share. Obviously, Alberta's richness is causing some drama in the Canadian Confederation. You've probably heard of something called Equalization payments. Well, essentially, they're a poor province wildest dream. Well, it's actually not what you think. Rich provinces do not pay poor provinces directly. It's rather a formula created by the federal government. Provinces receive money depending on its ability to raise money, meaning that poor provinces receive funds while rich ones receive nothing. However, Alberta does pay indirectly. You see, where does the federal government get this cash to redistribute? Well, it's taxes, and a lot of those taxes come from Alberta royalties. Plus, Alberta has received historically 0.03%, equivalent to $93 million of all equalization payments made in Canada. Compare that to Quebec's 50.5% or $198 billion in total received benefits. So who receives cash and who doesn't? As you can see from this map, these are what are known as the have provinces, which means that they received no cash from Ottawa in 2019. Alberta is obviously on the list, as it always is, well, with the exception of 2015 following the 2014 recession in the province. The other half provinces are Square Saskatchewan, mixed with the Newfie from the East Coast. Beautiful British Columbia and Ontario also made it to the club. Now, is Alberta happy about paying all this money to the system? No, especially when you take a look where the money flows. Quebec, the most grateful of all provinces, tops the charts with $13.1 billion received in benefits in 2019. And this is followed by Manitoba and then the Atlantic provinces of New Brunswick, Nova Scotia, and Prince Edward Island, which is very much not surprising. Now, this system is in place to ensure that poor provinces can give their citizens the same education and healthcare as wealthy provinces. The goal is essentially to uniformitize the country and make it consistent throughout. It had good intentions, it really did. However, now it is literally debated in every federal election. In fact, in 2019, it was a contested issue whether it should be changed or modified. And as you all know, Alberta's best friend, Justin Trudeau, won the office and the guy literally won 0 seats in Alberta. Even the NDP won one, man. In fact, Alberta, with Square Saskatchewan, are the most conservative provinces in the nation. During the 2019 elections, 69.2% of Albertans voted Conservative, 13.7% voted Liberal, 11.5% voted for the NDP, and the Greens won a surprising 2.8%, and then the 2.8% is shared with the rest of the parties. Now, this brings me to another point I wanted to make. Alberta, it's the least regulated province in Canada. I mean, the province doesn't even have a provincial tax, and corporate taxes, you guessed it, way lower than the rest of the country. This reality definitely contributes to Alberta's wealth status in Canada. Plus, it's just so goddamn beautiful. I mean, just look at this lake. It really does have it all, money plus beauty. Albertans are, however, very frustrated. The provincial government desires to continue investing in their oil industry. However, Canada is trying to reduce its carbon footprint on the world stage. But at the same time, Alberta is an immense source of wealth for the nation. Canada is conflicted, not knowing what to do next. Does it keep Alberta happy and develop the oil sector? Or does it keep its promise that it made in 2015 at the Paris Accords? Only time will tell. And in the meantime, a lot of Albertans are frustrated. Now, this begs the question, can Alberta keep its wealth status through this new climate era? I mean, Alberta's days as the richest man in Canada might be coming to an end. You should have taken notes from Norway, man. Now, that is it for today's video. I hope you guys learned something new on Alberta. And if you liked the video, please consider liking and subscribing. And I'll see you next time. Ciao, guys.